We are in Torah Yud Bet. We are in middle of Od Gimel, in middle of part 3 of Torah Yud Bet called Tehillah LeDavid. And last time we were speaking about how the reason why the tzaddik says over his Torah in a way that it can be interpreted for Yaakov, and it can be interpreted in a way that supports the views and the perspectives of Lavan, is because the tzaddik wants to draw the energy of the shefa of the Torah, the abundance, the light, the blessings of the Torah. He wants to draw the blessings as physical blessings to us as well in this physical world, as riches and glory. We spoke about this last time. And these the riches and glory of a person are the blessings that come from the left side, and they come from the midah of gevura. They come from the holy sphere of gevura. When a person rectifies that holy gevurot, he receives the blessings of this world. In this world, you also have spiritual blessings. Life itself, Chaim, and children are blessings that are also connected. They're also connected to the channels of the right channel, the Chochma Chesed Netzach channel, and the middle channel, the Kava Imtzai, the Dat Tiferet Yesod channel. Whereas the left side, the left channel, is where riches and glory come from. These are the sefirot of Bina, Gevura, and Hod. And so because the tzaddik wants us to have these blessings from the left side as well, which are the blessings that are more directly connected to this physical world than all the other blessings in this world, and that's wealth and glory. And it's connected to concealment, because we said the left side is always the aspect of concealment. And when you work through that concealment, when you work through those challenges, those obstacles, then you get, specifically, that's the method of receiving the blessings that come from the left side. Okay, and so in order for us to receive those blessings, the blessings of glory and riches, the tzaddik gives over the Torah in a way that it is enclosed in a klipa, it's encased in a covering, in a concealment of sheker. And the more natural, the more apparent understanding and perspective and interpretation of that Torah is the way of Lavan. It's the concealment of the darkness that's concealing the light. And because he gives over the Torah in this way, concealed and covered and encased within the Lavan interpretation, with the Shaddai within the shade, you break through the shade, you break through the demon, you break through the darkness, you break through that encasing, that klipa, you break through the Lavan, seeking the truth of Yaakov, seeking the true meaning in the Torah. And in this way, you are drawing the life energy of the Torah from its source to you in a way that it is enclosed in the blessings of this world. So now it is also, the light is also given to you, enclosed and embodied within a physical form. And that's manifested as the riches and glory that you are receiving. Because the tzaddik wants us to receive these blessings, he gives over the Torah in this way so that we may also receive those physical blessings. Because if it were just given over in a way that is Yaakov, right, Yaakov Torah, then that Torah has no connection to this world. It's a completely different world, right? No pun intended. It's completely separated from this world. There's no connection, and you cannot draw anything from such a Torah from the limit in its unlimited form, in its infinite form, into a finite world, into a limited world, into a physical world. And that's the purpose that the tzaddik has for giving over the Torah in this way. By the way, just so you should know, Rabbi Nachman, I just want to add, sometimes I'm going to add in the middle of the shiurim certain pointers that's going to help us understand all the other Torahs in Likutei Moharan from Rabbi Nachman himself. Okay, one of the things that Rabbi Nachman said about his Torahs, about the Likutei Moharan, and about the Torahs that he gives over, is that the whole Torah can be, you can explain the whole Torah. That means you can go from the Bereshit of the beginning of the Torah, the beginning of the Torah, the written Torah, and all of the oral Torah can all be explained from each one of the ideas in his Torahs. You can take this idea we just learned right now, and now you can open up Bereshit, and you can start explaining the whole Torah from the beginning to end according to this understanding he just gave us, and so on and so forth. Another thing Rabbi Nachman said is that nobody knows the real meaning of my Torahs unless he knows how to say over my Torahs and he understands my Torahs backwards and forwards, from the beginning to end, and from the end to the beginning. That's another thing that he says. And so many of the things that Rabbi Nachman says about his Torahs imply as well that all of his Torahs are paralleling each other. And so every Torah we are learning here is a complete koma shlema. Koma shlema is a Kabbalistic term for meaning complete partzuf, a complete world upon itself, a world unto itself. And that means that each one of these Torahs is a different dimension. It's a parallel dimension, and it's an inner dimension. And because we live in a world that is like a fractal system, right? And everything in this world it's multi-dimensional, and they're all paralleling each other. And in each part of each aspect of this world, you have all the paralleling dimensions connected to. So the way we understand parallel dimensions is that really that everything is, it's all standing above in the exact place of this physical world that we are in. And so it's kind of like a fractal. It's kind of like, what is it, the other, there's another word for it. Hologram, that's the word, thank you. So it's kind of like a hologram. More accurately, you can call it a hologram. And so therefore that means that in the same way, each one of these Torahs of Rebbe Nachman is just another sliver, okay, just taking another sliver, another dimension that's paralleling everything, all the other Torahs of Rebbe Nachman. And all of these are all inner dimensions in order to see the inner dimensions of the world, in order to see all the inner mechanisms behind reality, the physical aspects of reality, as well as the spiritual aspects of reality. Everything is in each one of these Torahs. And so many times you'll see how if you learn the Likutei Moharan enough times, right? Okay, which is many people that give classes in the Likutei Moharan today, it's their first time learning it, or the second time. At best, it's their fifth time learning it. Well, I learned Likutei Moharan 20 years ago, so I was understanding things the way people are giving over in their shiurim today, 20 years ago. What have I been doing since then? 20 years, the past 20 years. It's building depth upon depth upon depth upon depth, connecting it to Kabbalah, connecting it to other Sfarim and Chassidut, and understanding Rebbe Nachman. This is my most important goal and my most important achievement, is understanding Rebbe Nachman from Rebbe Nachman himself, from his own words, from his own perspectives. And this is exactly what I'm saying, what I'm explaining right now. And that is that each one of the Torahs in Likutei Moharan parallels all the other Torahs in Likutei Moharan. And when you've learned Likutei Moharan enough times, you begin to see the same patterns in each Torah. And therefore, you can explain one piece in one Torah according to all the other ways that he explained it in all the parallel Torahs in Likutei Moharan. Why am I saying this? I'm saying is that I want to give you some homework to start thinking about it. Think about how what we're speaking about right now, this idea that the Torah is given over by the tzaddik in a way that supports a Yaakov perspective, a Yaakov interpretation, or a Lavan interpretation of the Torah. And the Lavan interpretation is encasing it from the outside. That's the aspect of shade. The Yaakov is the inside, and that's the aspect of Shaddai. Now, I want you to think about how this relates to what we learned in the previous Torah, the aspects of the pshat of the Torah and the inner aspect of the Torah, which is halacha and Kabbalah. Halacha on the outside, Kabbalah on the inside. Halacha, we said, is corresponding to malach, a malach called Matat, right? And that's part of his name. We don't say his full name. By the way, he's mentioned in this week's parsha, Parshat Mishpatim. Hashem says, towards the end of the parsha, Hashem says that I will send my messenger before you, an angel, to be a messenger, and he will guide you, he will lead you in the midbar. Rashi says, why? Where is this coming from? What did Am Yisrael do that they should deserve this? And so Rashi says that this is a parsha that is connected to the sin of the Egel, and it's already foreseeing the sin of the Egel, and because of that sin, Hashem sent a messenger in his place. So this is already, the sin of the Egel is something that is representing the Itzadat Tovara. Okay, remember when Bnei Yisrael received the Torah, the Zohar says, and the Gemara says, Paskat zu hamatan, the venom of the snake left them, dissolved, and was left, they were purified and healed from it completely. And when they went and they sinned with the Egel, so that's history returning, and now they're sinning with the Itzadat Tovara again. And so what happens is that they fell down again from Eitz HaChaim, from the tree of life, to the aspect of Itzadat Tovara. And we explained in the previous Torah that Eitz HaChaim is the Kabbalah, whereas the Itzadat Tovara is halacha, right? Itzadat Tovara is halacha. Why is it halacha? Well, halacha is not actually Itzadat Tovara. There's no ra in halacha. But in halacha, you have the two sides, okay? I'm kind of giving away the homework already for you, but the Eitzadat Tovara has two sides to it. And halacha, the Mishnayot, is the rectification of the Eitzadat Tovara, but it is in the place of Eitzadat Tovara. That's where you're breaking through the sheker and you're finding the truth in the Eitzadat Tovara. Okay. Now the Malach Matat is named. Rashi says, by the way, on that pasuk, that when Hashem says, I'm going to send my messenger, Rashi says on the spot, he says, this is the angel called Matat. And his name is Gematria Shaddai. Why is his name Gematria Shaddai? If we understand here that Shaddai is the higher aspect, because Shaddai is the inner aspect. Once you have rectified the halacha, the tameh from tahor, you remove the tameh and you understand what's tahor. You remove what's pasul and you understand what's kasher. That's what all halacha is all about. From chayav, you remove and you come to what's patur. You remove the asur and you come to what's mutar. So all of these aspects of birur, these are birurim that we explained in the previous Torah, are birurim of Yemot HaChol, the birurim of the 6 days of the week, which represent the birurim, selecting and purifying of the Eitzadat Tovara. That is corresponding to the Malach of Matat, and that's why only after the sin of the Egel, that's the Hanhaga, that's the way they're connecting to Hashem. It's Hashem through an intermediary, so to speak, right? An intermediary called Matat, the Malach Matat. Now, this is exactly this idea, and is what we're seeing represented in this Torah here as well. That when the tzaddik gives over the Torah, and it's sovel pirush shel sheker, it supports, so to speak, it supports an interpretation of sheker, and that's the encasing of the Torah within the sheker, and we break through that. That's how we understand. That's how we receive the blessings in this world. That's the aspect of the Sheshit Yimei. The blessings of this world is the aspect of the 6 days of the week, right? The blessings of the next world, Orich Yamim, the longevity, the spiritual longevity, the life in the world that is eternal, that represents the blessings of the next world. But the blessings of this world are represented by the 6 days of the week, okay? And if you remember at the beginning of this Torah, Torah Yud Bet, Tehillah LeDavid, Rabbi Nachman explained about these shadim. Okay, remember what we explained, what shade, why are they called shade? Shade is just the corrupted form of Shaddai. It's taking the Yud out of the Shaddai, and you're left with shade. And that's exactly the Ra of the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra. That's the evil from the bad, from the tree of good and bad. Okay, so these Talmidei Chachamim, right? That's what that are called Jewish demons. They're called Shedin Yehudaim, and that's a term that's brought from the Zohar. Rabbi Nachman brings that term from the Zohar, Tikkun Zohar. Okay, he says about them. He says that they're not called Talmidei Chachamim unless they learn the halacha, unless they learn the Gemara, right? That part of the Torah, the pshat of the Torah. And the reason why is because that part of the Torah is specifically and especially is the part of the Torah that supports these two interpretations. You can see it especially over there. And if a person is not careful, because there's so much darkness to remove, a person can fall into the lavan aspect of learning Torah, the disconnected way of learning Torah. That's just a little spark, a little insight to see how two Torahs, one next to each other, Rabbi Nachman, are paralleling each other. Okay, and so now this is going to help you start opening your eyes and paying attention how this happens in other places as well. Okay, the first stage in understanding, with a deeper understanding, is knowing that understanding exists. Now you understand. Now you know that understanding, that this whole model that I just gave you right now exists, and that's the first stage to paying attention to it and to seeing it. Okay, ועל זה צריך הלמדן לידע קודם לימודו שבשעה שיושב ללמוד הצדיק שבגן עדן ציית לקלה. כמו שכתוב, היושבת בגנים חברים מקשיבים לקולך. And so says Rebbe Nachman, therefore, when a person wants to learn Torah lishma, and he wants to learn Torah with Yirat Shamayim, in a connected way with Ribono Shel Olam, he's giving us advice. You must start off your learning with a state of Yirat Shamayim. Get yourself in a state of awe. What is this state of awe? This is similar to the state of awe that we must begin all Shemona Esrei and all prayer with. And that's a state of awe that comes from recognizing, just getting into that, recognizing what it is that I'm about to do. In Tefillah, who am I speaking to right now? I'm about to speak to Hashem, the King of Kings, the creator of all, the source of the whole universe. And you start pondering, contemplating the greatness of the Rebbe Nachman. So you come to that state of hakara v'harigasha, right? Felt recognition of the Rebbe Nachman. That's the state of that. And that's what this awe is all about. That's what this yira is all about. That yira opens up the floodgates to receive that connection, okay? And before you learn as well, before you sit down, you learn the Likutei Moharan, says Rebbe Nachman, pay attention that at this moment, right now, the tzaddik from above, the tzaddik that originated this Torah, is in Gan Eden, and he's listening to these words that are being spoken by us in his name. Right now, Rabbi Nachman in Gan Eden, if you can visualize that, is right now listening to this shir that is happening right now in his name. His Torah that is being given over. Okay, that instantly puts you in a state of dat. And that's the opening, that's the prerequisite that allows you, that's the segula that allows you to make this unification, to have this unification come about. And the unification, as we said, the zivug de neshikin, the unification of my ruach with the ruach of the tzaddik. Now Rebbe Nachman is going to take this and he's going to fit it into the psukim and show us how it's represented in the psukim in the same parsha that we were speaking about before, right? Lavan and Rachel and Yaakov. V'zeh, Vahi ki shmoa Lavan et shema Yaakov ben achoto. The pasuk says, when Lavan heard the name of Yaakov, his sister's son. Okay, what is this? What is this alluding to from what we spoke about? Hainu, כשהלמדן יודע shema Yaakov, שיעקב בן אחותו, בחינת כשרות, שלמד ואמר זאת התורה בכשרות לשמה, ויעקב היינו התנא, ציית לקלה, וירוץ לקראתו ומחבק ומנשק לו. היינו שעל ידי לימודו מתאבק רוח התנא ברוחו, זה בחינת נשיקים. ויביאהו אל ביתו, שמביא את רוח התנא לתוך התורה שלומד עכשיו, כי שם ביתו, כמו שכתוב, תוצא הארץ נפש חיה. It's so geschmack. So he says that when Lavan hears that Ben Achuto, he hears that the son of his sister, and beforehand, earlier in this Torah, Rabbi Nachman explained that the Ben Achuto is the son of his sister, the son of Rivka. The son of Rivka represents the interpretation that supports Yaakov, whereas Lavan represents, obviously, the interpretation of Lavan. And so these are the two. When he sees, and he hears that the tzaddik from below, the tzaddik in this world, is learning Torah in a way that supports the Yaakov interpretation, and he's learning Torah in a connected state. So he's called Ben Achuto. He is now called, the tzaddik from below is called the son of Rivka. And because of that, he is now connected with Yaakov, and that's why you see in the pasuk Yaakov Ben Achuto. There's a connection between the spirit, the ruach, the neshama of the tzaddik from above and the tzaddik from below, the Yaakov and the Ben Achuto. So through that, vayarotz likrato, he runs towards him. Who runs towards him? So Rabbi Nachman, the way he's explaining this pasuk, who runs towards him? It's the tzaddik from above that runs towards him. The tzaddik from above sees that this person is learning Torah in a connected state, and so his spirit, his ruach, runs towards him, hugs him, and kisses him, and there is this unification, the zivug de neshikin, this kissing that is happening between the two. Vayivi'eu el beto, shemevi et ruach hatana letoch haTorah shelomed achshav. And this tzaddik from below brings the spirit of the tzaddik from above into the Torah that he is speaking right now. Okay, like the Baal Shem Tov teaches, when you learn Torah, when you daven as well, but when you learn Torah, he says you should be mechaven, you should intend to draw the light of the Ein Sof, the light of the Ribono Shel Olam, into the letters of the Torah that you're learning. And when a person wakes up in the morning, says the Baal Shem Tov, and a person is in a state of constricted consciousness, in a state of katnut hamochi, and whatever he's doing, nothing is helping. So a person, he says, a big school, the Baal Shem Tov taught, sit down and learn Torah, and learn the Torah with dveikut, and intend to draw this light of Hashem into the letters of the Torah that you're learning. And so we see this here as well. So this is the dveikut. You have the dveikut with the tzaddik's neshama, and through this, and learning with this proper intention, this Torah lishma, vayevi'eu el beto, you're bringing the soul, the ruach of the tzaddik into the Torah that you are learning right now. And that's called bringing him into his house, because this is his house. His Torah is his house. And at the same time, what happens is that you are drawing life energy into the tzaddik's body as well, in his grave, and his lips are speaking those words at the same time, like the Gemara in Yevamot says. So, Kemosh Katuv Totzeh Haaretz Nefesh Chaya, right? That the earth bring forth this living soul. And so that means that the soul, the speech is the life energy, and you are bringing that, the Torah of the tzaddik, you're bringing the soul of the tzaddik, his speech, his power of speech, you're bringing it into his Torah, which is his house. Vayisaper liLavan. Vayisaper liLavan, says Rabbi Nachman, Vayisaper also sounds like the word sapir, which means light, which means to illuminate. So he illuminated and he lit up. ויספר ללבן לשון ספיר ואור שרוח התנא מאיר להלמדן ומבאר לו את הדברים האלה. פירוש רש"י שלא בא אלא מתוך אונס אחיו שנטל ממנו ממונו. So Yaakov told Lavan, okay, going back to the simple understanding of these psukim, Yaakov told Lavan everything that happened to him and why he doesn't have any money. The simple understanding of this story in the Torah is that Lavan ran and hugged and kissed Yaakov because he was looking for money. And he felt him up looking for money in his pockets, and then he kissed him. Says Rashi and the Medrash, he was looking for, maybe he has gems hidden in his mouth. And he didn't find anything. So Yaakov explained to him why he didn't have money, like Yitzchak, when Eliezer came for Yitzchak's wife. Eliezer was carrying, he had a lot of money, right? He had all this wealth, and he had a document with all the riches that were of Abraham in his hands. Why did Yaakov come empty-handed? And he explained to him, as Rashi said, "Shelo ba'ila mitoch ones achiv shenatam mimenu mamono." Rashi said, so Yaakov explained to him that he was robbed on the way to Lavan. Eliphaz, the son of Esav, was sent by Esav to kill Yaakov, and Yaakov but he didn't want to kill his beloved uncle, but he was torn because he had a dilemma. He was torn between both sides. His dilemma was that on the one hand he doesn't want to kill his beloved uncle, on the other hand his father, he has a mitzvah of kibud av va'em, right? By Esav, they're very, very makbid. They're very careful. They with the commandment of kibud av va'em, right? And because they don't have Yirat Shamayim, so they are ready to honor their parents and fulfill their parents' wishes, even when it means killing somebody, right? That's the way Esav's family follows the commandments, right? Without any Yirat Shamayim. That's the aspect of Lavan as well. But so he tells Yaakov, what should I do? I have to fulfill my father's wishes. And so Yaakov told him that if you take my money, if you take all my wealth and everything that I own, the Gemara says, Ani chashuv kemet, a person who is poor and doesn't have any belongings is considered dead. That's how we see this also in Mitzrayim by Datan and Avira. It says that when Moshe came back to Mitzrayim, so it says that the people that wanted to kill Moshe had already died. Now, who were those people? They were Datan and Aviram, but Rashi says they didn't die. And Rashi says that actually they lost all their wealth. And because they lost all their wealth, it's as if they died, right? So there are a few things that the Gemara says that a person is considered like he died. One thing is a person loses all their wealth. Another thing is if a person goes into exile, right? They lose their house and they move somewhere else, or they don't have a settled house, right? That's considered also exile. And the third thing is a person who is blind. And lemay nafkamina, what is the difference to us? What's considered dead? One of the differences is that many times an aspect of these three things that a person goes through in their life can be considered an atonement. And if there was a decree for that person to die, heaven forbid, then these decrees, such a difficult decree can be exchanged by losing money or by being exiled for moving or something like that, or chas v'shalom, not in anyone, losing their eyesight. But that's the simple understanding of this pasuk here. Now, how does Rabbi Nachman fit in this Torah into these psukim? So says Rabbi Nachman, first he's going to give us the words of Rashi, and then we're going to see how it fits in. Vaysaper leLavan et hadvarim ha'ele. So Vaysaper leLavan, he illuminated the Lamdan. This Lamdan who was called Lavan is now, we see that he's going through the stages of Teshuvah. And how? Because he got into a state of dat. First of all, he recognized that when he sits down to learn the Torah, at this time, right now, the tzaddik from above is listening to my words as I'm speaking them, and I'm bringing the soul, the life energy of this tzaddik into his house, meaning into his Torah, as I'm learning it. That recognition, that dat is opening for him all the parts of the teshuvah that he needs to go through to go from Lavan to Yaakov. And so that's why the next words in the pasuk is that Vaysaper, he illuminated, he lit up the tzaddik from above, now illuminated and lit up the Lavan, and he explains to him. What does he explain to him? Et hadvarim ha'ele, these words. What are these words? Rashi explains, this is what we just said, שלא בא אלא מתוך אונס אחיו שנטל ממנו ממונו, that he did not come bearing gifts because he was robbed by his brother who had taken away all of his money. What is the understanding, the deeper understanding of these words in Rashi? פירוש שרוח התנא מודיע ללמדן שלא באה התנא לבחינה הזאת שיסבול תורתו משמעות ערמומיות, אלא מתוך אונס שנטל ממונו. כדי בשמאלה עושר וכבוד, כדי להמשיך להם שפע גשמיות. So he explained to him that the spirit of the tzaddik is explaining to the Lavan, to the tzaddik from below, the potential tzaddik from below, he is explaining to him that the Torah was only given over in a way that it is encased in that false interpretation, which brings to cunning, which brings to dishonesty, as we spoke about, right? That's the Lavan interpretation. It supports the Lavan lifestyle, the Lavan way of living, the Lavan belief system, the Lavan perspective. The only reason why it was given over, encased in that false interpretation, is in order to bring the money. Is because his brother robbed from us the blessings of this world. Okay, so that's the fact that a tzaddik wants to bring to the Yaakov the blessings of this physical world to us as well, even though the side of the Sitra Achra has taken those blessings of this physical world away from us. And it's not natural usually to see those blessings by someone who's completely living a life in the next world, in the next realm, in the spiritual world. But in order to draw to us, Bnei Israel, in this physical world, the physical blessings as well, that's why he had to give over the Torah encased in that sheker interpretation, encased in that interpretation that supports dishonesty. And that's what he's saying to him here. In order to draw the blessings of the left hand of the Torah, the bismullah oshe v'chavod, from her left hand, the left hand of the Torah, we receive the blessings of wealth and glory, and which is the chef of God, Gashmiut, the abundance and the blessings of the physical world. And כשיידע הלמדן כל זה, יאמר לבן, אך עצמי ובשרי אתה, דהיינו שהתקשר הלמדן עם התנא בהתקשרות גדול. When this lamdan recognizes and understands this, and now he has come to realize that the false interpretation that he thought this is the way, this is what the Torah is telling me. The Torah is teaching me dishonesty. The Torah is teaching me to speak Lashon Hara. The Torah is teaching me all of these bad midot, right? To live a life disconnected and to live a life that is pursuing the ego desires. Now he realizes that that's not really the Torah, that is just a false encasing, a klipa encasing, concealing the truth of the Torah, and he understands the purpose behind it. So what does he do now? He returns, he repents, he returns to Hashem, and now he says, now he comes to realize, ach atzmi uvsari ata. Now he comes to realize that the Tana, the tzaddik from above, is truly holy, is truly pure, and he connects to him from his true and his holy place, from his holy neshama, and that causes this complete unification that we were speaking about, the zivug de neshikin. And Bezrat Hashem will continue more about that in the next year.